You weren't expecting that, were you? Good morning. So today, another Max talk. What I'm going to do is I just want to address a little bit about PT and specifically talk about the fitness prerequisites that we brought in for the tactical classes. It doesn't apply to any classes that we run purely on the square range, flat range, but it specifically applies to classes that move out onto the tactical ranges. We brought those in at the end of 2017, and I think it's important for me to kind of say, why we did that. We didn't do it because, I'm super mean and we wanted to just do it to, upset people. There is a point, you heard me maybe on my last talk about the warrior mindset. There is a point that, if you're considering any kind of tactical activity, fighting with firearms, whatever it is, just generally living your life, then of course it benefits you to be physically fit and to work on that, because that is part of the whole man concept of the warrior mindset. It isn't really my job to try and force that on people. People are either gonna adopt it or they're not. So what I'm really talking about here is the fitness prerequisites that I brought in for the tactical classes. And it's important to understand that it's not a test. What we require you to do is to self-certify that you have basically completed the fitness prerequisites on the sign-in form that you bring to class. And so mostly we take your word on it. We also allow you, if you're an athlete, you just run a marathon, you can ask me about that and we'll put that down instead. I mean, if you just ran a marathon, there's no need to do my very basic fitness prerequisite. And all it really is a watershed to ensure that you are at a physical level that two things are important with this. One is that you are safe on the ranges. And I'll talk about that in a minute. And the other one is that you are at a physical level where you can train throughout the day on the tactical ranges and get the benefit of that instruction and of those practical movement lanes. Because if you're just blowing out your ass all day, you're not going to take any of it in. And when you come back down for the lecture periods, because there's breaks between lectures, rehearsals, and then we run the live ranges, and we'll do the same thing again. And you're just going to be concerned about how tired you are, and you're not really going to be. It's not going to be a great learning experience. You're not getting your best bang for your buck out of it. There's two components to it. The first part is carrying a 25-pound pack or ruck. I want you to do 2 miles in 30 minutes. So that's a 15-minute mile pace. We don't require hills, it can be on the flat, and that's a basic 15-minute mile pace, which is a fast walk. You may find it beneficial to shuffle on some of the downhills, but it's not extremely hard and it's not a huge amount of weight. And the reason I wanted people to be able to do that was so that you had the the cardiovascular and the muscular endurance to carry a small amount of weight, which represents carrying a rifle and your magazines on the tactical ranges throughout the day. And notice that there's no rushes involved in that. There's no kind of sprint training, which is probably more equates to fire movement. It's just to show that you're a basic physical level, and that's a baseline, guys. It's not that that's like the selection test. That's just to show that you're fit enough. You can go a lot further beyond that, and I'll talk about that a little bit in a minute. And the second part of this fitness prerequisite may seem a little odd at first, but when you get in from that 2 miler, you need to do a number of alternating lunges, and they're specifically done with your hands on your head, kind of like a sit-up. And what you're doing is you're standing in place and you're alternating lunging forward with one leg, stand back up, lunge forward with the next leg, stand back up. And what that's specifically designed to do is to simulate taking a knee, moving into a fire position on a knee, whilst maintaining safe handling of your weapon, of your rifle. And that was specifically brought in because I ran some classes at the end of 2017, and specifically on several of those classes there were people who were unable to get up and down from a kneeling position whilst safely holding the weapon. And so I wanted to make sure that people could do that before they came on a class. So it's a specific safety thing to make sure you've got the balance and the leg strength to actually do that independently of your arms, of pushing on your knees or whatever. So that's the reason that came in. When I want people to realize that we don't run some kind of smoke session going on. The classes that we run are constructive learning experiences, and it's important that not only for yourself but for all the other students there, that not only are you fit enough to be safe on the ranges, but you're also fit enough to learn. So if you can't get up and down from a kneeling position safely whilst holding your weapon, then that's unsafe for other students. If you're just so smoked that you've got the brain fog and you can't really understand what you're doing on the ranges, you don't have any situational awareness, you won't be able to develop situational awareness, and therefore it's not a good learning experience, and also it's potentially a safety issue for other students. So we run very safe ranges. They are movement ranges, but they are very safe. That's specifically the reasons for the fitness prerequisites. Now, as I touched on a minute ago, I was saying about, it's not some kind of selection test to come on a class. In the past, we've done all sorts of things. We've had, people injured on patrol classes, which is now Heat 2, and, they might have turned an ankle or hurt a knee, and we've physically moved them in the Ranger side by side to the ORP or to the support by fire position, so that despite being injured, they can participate in the class. We've had people injured in the class, or and some of this will be knocked out a little bit by the new fitness prerequisites, but either injured or coming to the class, sort of slightly physically, incapable in some ways, and we've allowed them to, for example, not take a knee or not go prone whilst conducting fire movement, but take a standing position. So these are the kind of things that we'll do to sort of work with students at classes. But hopefully putting in those fitness prerequisites is kind of given a baseline level. Because in all honesty, I think that some people, I've banged on for the last 5 or 6 years about doing PT, and I think that some people, they just don't even have a baseline or anything to refer to. So when I say to do PT, they're like, well, what? I'm doing PT, I went for a walk. Well, how does that apply to, tactical training or a tactical situation? So I'm giving people a baseline. And hopefully you guys are training and you're well beyond that. It's interesting because I've referred to taking a knee several times, and people, well, what about prone position? Well, so that's interesting, because in the brief, the safety brief at the beginning of the class, I will say to people, there's a couple of reasons why you're going to take different positions. And we're going to go into a lesson on taking and breaking cover. We're going to talk about use of cover, stacking trees, all of these things. And we're going to talk about, specifically, we're going to talk about working your cover. So once you move into your piece of cover that you've decided, you'll have to work your cover either horizontally or vertically, depending on obstructions, trees, barricades, and micro terrain. So, for example, prone, which if we were doing this on a football field, prone may be the ideal position at all times, but it may not be the position that you need to adopt whilst out in the field on the tactical ranges. You might need to go in a kneeling position or even a standing position or some kind of, hybrid position. The other side of that is I'll say to people, you're here to learn. So, if you have completely smoked yourself on the first few sessions by going prone on every movement, and you're starting to get a bit exhausted, I don't want you to be exhausted. I want you to assimilate the training. So if you prefer to take a kneeling position, take a kneeling position. And that leads to what I was saying before about people who maybe injure themselves and even the kneeling becomes too much and then they're moving in standing positions, which is not ideal, but at least they are getting the benefit of the training. So that's generally the fitness prerequisites and the reason for them. It's not designed to push people away from classes, it's designed to get people to that basic standard for their own benefit and for the safety of all the other students and the progression of the class. It's an interesting point though. So PT in general, and this is not going to be a long talk on PT, but you know, what should you do, and how you know, can you get fit? So I'm in my 40s now, and you know, I've had a spinal fusion not so long ago. My knees are catching up on me. It's not like it was 25 years ago. So if you're an athlete, then fine, continue doing what you're doing. If you're getting older or you're dealing with injuries, you need to train sensibly to maintain a level of fitness where you are physically and tactically capable as part of that whole man concept of the warrior mindset, right? The whole man warrior. But you need to avoid injury, and you need to train in a way that, you know, is going to prevent you getting injured, but it's going to, you know, keep you at a level. And what would I suggest? I mean, most people, you know, we have busy day-to-day lives. You might have access to a gym, or you might have a home gym or something like that. So I would suggest some kind of, you know, strength conditioning program. But I'd also suggest strongly that you don't ignore the cardiovascular fitness, which is ultimately what you're going to need in a tactical environment. And so you need to try and do that in a way that's not going to injure you further. You want to look at something low impact, mixed with perhaps some more high impact things at times. But you know, you may even be, right now I'm beyond running. So I'm not training by running at all. So you might find that you know, a step machine is low impact and is a very good way of doing cardiovascular training. You can put a weight vest on when you do a step machine. Another way, a useful way to train, is rather than a classic, you know, ruck, which you may do a ruck because you don't want to go out in public wearing a rifle and all your gear, so you may well, you know, go out and do it, you know, carrying a rucksack. And I would advise you don't go above 40 pounds and don't run. So the way you can, if you want to train by going out for a walk, a good way to do that is to either wear some kind of backpack, or preferably wear your actual gear, you know, your battle belt, plate carrier, chest rig, backpack, whatever your actual patrol gear is, and then exercise in that, which is also going to show you, you know, what's not working, what's uncomfortable, etc. And you know, if you're starting to try and get back into fitness, you can start off with less weight, you can start off with less parts of your kit, less stuff in it, and you can just start off by walking. And ultimately you want to get to a point where you can go out for several miles, and hopefully you've got a few hills, and you can kind of drive up the hills and then recover on the way down, and then drive up the hill and recover on the way down, and you can do hill sessions or just some kind of circuit with hills, and that's going to be ideal for, you know, just developing that base level of cardiovascular endurance and strength. Don't necessarily run down the hills. If you feel your knees are good and, you know, it's okay to do a shuffle run down the hills, then by all means do that. But it's not really necessary. You may notice that none of what I've talked about is really high intensity exercise, although it's going to be high intensity if you're trying to, you know, thrash yourself up a hill and then recover on the way down. That's going to be pretty good for that. But so we're trying to balance, you know, older folks here, 40s, 50s, maybe 60s, doing something that's going to keep you physically, tactically fit, but isn't necessarily going to be like CrossFit sort of, which is probably going to blow your joints out, blow your back out. Any kind of, you know, we're not talking about speed circuits here, which if you can do it, that's great. And the purpose of me talking about this is not to give you all the fitness advice in the world. It's more to give you some ideas of how to possibly train whilst not injuring yourself at a level that's going to get you tactically capable, but I would suggest, you know, isn't too much. It's not too little, it's not too much. Hopefully I'm not going to bang on too long today. If there's any further questions about this, like about the fitness prerequisites and stuff, you know, either on the forum or even in comments on YouTube, you know, ask me the question. I'm going to be doing more of these and try not to talk for so long each time. Before I go, just want a quick mention. So we've got Max Velocity Tactical Performance t-shirts up on the website. This one's going out today. I'm wearing one right now. This is my one. Except you don't get the cadre bit, okay? No cadre bit for you, okay? So here we go. So MVT t-shirt, and on the back, performance t-shirt. This one's actually going to be mailed today, okay? So, and shortly we're going to be getting the SOR rigs back in stock as well. So that'll be announced on the forum, or even in one of these videos when the time comes. So, thank you very much.